Rogue has been for a couple days already and we've been testing more, so let's talk a little bit where she is on the tier list right now, how to properly build her when it comes to gear, when it comes to cube, to the skill priority, and for possible team compositions, if you should pull for dupes or not, and my final thoughts on this character. As usual, hello the internet, welcome back to the Waifus. I'm Sefhi, leave a like, subscribe, help me grow the channel, and let's get started with the video directly to not make it too long. So let's go into Rogue. Yes, I will not properly pronounce her name, I don't care too much, okay? It is what it is, I'm not French, she looks great, that's what it matters, alright? We all understand who we're talking about. So, let's talk about this. Rogue, how to properly build her. Let's start with in-game here, talking about the gear, the skills, and the cube, and then we'll go into the website, check pros, cons, and where she is on the tier list with the changes after this character has been released. I think instead of making a monthly tier list video, it's easier to make one video like after we've done after we finalize like a character review and we make some changes, that time talk about that, right? Instead of separated videos, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. That's it. Let's talk about Rogue, starting with gear priority. Now, when it comes to gear, she does not have high priority. She is literally, just like the killer wife. When we talk about like gear for these two characters, they want the same thing, right? Because they have both 6 ammo capacity, but their skill 1 for the cooldown reduction, in this case skill 2 for the killer wife, needs 8 shots. Meaning the only thing you care about these two characters, if you were to overload them, which you don't need, it's a couple lines of max ammunition. That's it, nothing else. That's the only thing she needs. Now, of course, if you get elemental damage, it's always going to be good because it helps, right? We're still heading into the pure elemental content in the future, so the earlier you start preparing, the better. That's it. A couple lines of max ammunition, the rest can be fillers, doesn't matter. If you get charge speed, good. If you get elemental, perfect. Now, that's it, low priority. If you do not get a couple lines of max ammunition, let's talk about the cube first and then we'll go into the skills. Because for the cube, there is 3 options. You can go resilience for the extra reload since she has like a 2.33 seconds, right? You can also be going with wingman because reminder that you get extra ammunition, meaning you can get at least 8 shots on your magazine, so you will be proccing consistently your cooldown reduction. Or you could also be going with Bastion, which should work as well every time you're fighting 10 rounds, reload 3 rounds. Bastion will only work if you have max ammunition capacity as well. If not, I would go with either resilience or wingman. Those are like the best options right now. So that about gear, that about cube. Let's talk a little bit about the skills themselves, and let's go into the website for everything else. So skills 844. You could be going into a 744, but 7 is going to be sometimes not properly proccing your cooldown reduction, depending on the boss, depending how much time she needs to be covering or reloading, etc. So I would go 8 to be sure. You do not need to invest in a skill 2 or the burst itself. Now, is it good investing on the skill 2 considering you're getting the attack damage, Sefhi? You could invest a little bit more. I personally feel it's a waste of resources. So you could be going 874, but I think 844 is more than enough. Level 7 on a skill 1 might be a little bit too tight, so I recommend level 8. There is no need to go higher than 8 into 9 or 10. It's too much resources for the little bit of extra cooldown that you're getting. So level 8, more than enough. So she doesn't need a lot of investment, which is always a pro in my book. Now, that's it about how to properly build her. And before I forget, and we go into the website for pros, cons, tier list, let's talk about if you should pull for dupes or not. No, you shouldn't pull, okay? As good as she looks, she is not limited. You do not need to be pulling for dupes. In fact, we talked about this already. A lot of people are even skipping her because right now for them it doesn't make sense to waste resources when we're getting another 2 DPSs plus anniversary. Non-limited character for new players or for people who are doing raids, amazing, get one. If not, you could be skipping if you are tight on resources. When it comes to dupes, no need for dupes. It's just like the killer wife, you can get them over time. She's not a limited character. So that's it. Let's talk a little bit about the tier list and share her pros and cons that we've added in here. So let's open Rogue, let's open the tier list, and let's start with the tier list. Why not? Let me make this bigger so you guys can properly see. Alright, we've made a couple changes into the tier list. In fact, only one change per se. But as you can see, T0.5 is a little bit more convoluted now because we've moved from T0, both bunnies, Blank and Nor, and now Rogue is also appearing on T0.5. Now the incognito will be will Nor remain in 0.5? Or now that we have Rogue, is she gonna be going down into that T1 and keeping Blank Rogue together on 0.5? We'll see. We still have the same issue that tiers are too convoluted, right? Because there is too many characters. For example, Rem It would be like the worst in this tier, but she's better than almost anything on tier 1. So it's like, do you want to make yet another tier in between those two? It's like, not really. So Shift Up will keep releasing a lot of units. At some point, I'll have to add a T4 into the tier list, or like a T3.5 or whatever it is that we add, right? Just so we can keep making clearer differentiations between these characters that sometimes it doesn't make sense to put them together on the same tier. That said, 0.5, really good character, but we're reaching a point where some of these units, they are not limited. We already have other cooldown reductions. They are not mandatory to be pulling for. That's it. Pros and cons. Let's talk a little bit about this, right? Like I was saying already, you have the full build on the website if you prefer that, right? If you prefer to be reading instead of watching me yapping for 10 minutes, let's talk about the pros and the cons a little bit. There is a few things that I want to mention here that I believe is important. Let's start with the pros, then with the cons. So the first pro, of course, she does not need high investment, right? Like we were saying, you can just invest on the skill 1 and she will work because she is a cooldown reduction unit. In fact, my Killer Wife is also a 484 because the cooldown reduction is on skill 2. So in that regard, both of them are pretty cheap to build and amazing characters for the CDR. Now, she also opens a lot of team compositions, and this is because she's a 777 member, meaning you not only can pair her with Blank and you can remove Nord, but you can also pair her with Nord and remove Blank. There is a lot of team compositions opening thanks to this. You can even be running shotgun teams now with something like Rogue Nord, depending on if you need cooldown reduction or if you prefer to be running a Taupe Leona, right? It really depends, but there is a lot more options now thanks to having 3 7-7 members, and now you can mix and match with Blank, which is the important one, depending what you're doing. So that's amazing, and one of the best things this character is providing. Now, she is the second strongest CDR in the game, and this is because the strongest cooldown reduction in the game right now is Killer Wife. And she is a copy of Killer Wife when it comes to the cooldown reduction. It's the same number, 6.36 a cooldown at level 8, just like Rogue. Now, when it comes to the reload speed, it's a little bit higher, but it's not going to be noticeable on a 3-minute fight, 2 seconds versus 2.33. At the end of the day, it is what it is, right? It's not that big of a deal. So in that regard, second strongest CDR. Even though Litter is a stronger character when it comes to just the cooldown reduction, she is the second best in the game. And then lastly, she can provide sustain for the team because remember that her max HP should be restoring. I think they changed that. I'm not sure if it's already updated or not. I might be tripping, but this without restoring should be removed soon. Again, I think maybe I'm tripping and it was someone else and I'm making a mistake. Do let me know in the comments. But if that's the case, she also heals. In fact, she also procs Crown skill 2. Some people were asking about this. She does proc Crown skill 2 when she receives any type of recovery on the attack damage, right? So if we come here and we go to the skill 2 at the bottom, activates when recovery takes effect, affect all allies attack damage increased by 20%. That will proc. It's just that it's not super consistent. It's not going to be like 100% uptime with Rogue Crown, so that's to take into consideration. Now let's move into the cons after all of these pros. Her move modifiers are not that high in contrast to, for example, Killer Wife or Litter, right? Litter with the attack, Killer Wife with a little bit of attack damage, and that big pierce that she's doing as well. So the modifiers are not high, but it does not really matter since what's important is the CDR, plus, everything else is a nice extra. Now, she needs to be positioned in the back row, position 2 or 4. We already talked about this. Your row should be positioned only on 4 or on 2, and your DPSs should be placed around her, always, because she will be giving boosts only to the characters around her. This is something bad because people will not remember this. Not only this, but a lot of new players don't read kits, and so most people, myself included, will put her here, right? And then will forget about her. Does she work for the cooldown? Yes, but you're losing the buffs. So that's something to take into consideration that a lot of people will forget, and I think it's worth putting as a con. And then the last thing is that just because the positioning, she is not auto or beginner friendly, because Shift Up is overcomplicating these kits with stuff that is not really super important. Like, I don't think positioning or how to position characters should be a core mechanic of the game, considering, for example, co-op, you cannot choose where you are on the game, right? And it's like, okay, you're letting me play co-op with friends and you're like making more characters like this where we need to position ourselves depending where we are, right? And people in co-op are gonna be resetting constantly to get crown, for example, on the left, things like that. So she's not auto or beginner friendly. And the last thing that I need to put, right, is that right now, when it comes to max HP teams, there is not that many characters that she can be used with. Yes, it will help Blank. There is Guillotine, there is 2B if you were to also use Must, but that's about it. There isn't a lot of characters that these will be usable with. That said, those are like the pros and cons that the character has. It's a pretty simple build, it's a pretty good character considering how simple the kit is as well, which makes me afraid of what they're planning for the second anniversary and how strong that character is going to actually be. So we'll see what they do with that. That said, that's gonna be it for this review. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Rogue, where she's on the tier list, and how to properly build her. All that said, that's gonna be for this video. I'll see you guys later on stream. We're gonna be talking a bit about Rogue. If you are interested in specific team compositions, let me know. She's a universal character because she can be fit on any team, literally, right? So all that said, is gonna be for this one. Thank you to my patrons for making this content possible. Love you all, both of good luck with your cool dinner. I'll see you in the next one.
役立たずは楽園から追放するのみ。ブランとノワールのショータイムです。天地万物を切るとはこういうことだ。